Welcome to the Business Leaders Legacy Podcast, the show where we go behind the scenes with business leaders to uncover their vision, strategies, and challenges they face along the way. My name is Chris Bruner. I'm the CEO of Simple AI Solutions and the host of today's podcast. I'm excited to have Shelby Hull, the president and principal consultant at H21 Enterprise. H21 Enterprise is recognized for delivering solution-focused consulting, promotion, and representation within the stormwater and infrastructure industries, connecting stakeholders with vetted top-tier solution providers. Shelby, thank you for being here. Can you please introduce yourself, tell our listeners a little about you, your role, and the clients you serve?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chris. Like Chris said, my name is Shelby Hull. I'm president and principal consultant, H21 Enterprises. I've been in business roughly for myself 2 years now. Started in 2024. Actually, it was April of 2024. I'll come back to that, but I'm been married 26 years, father of three boys. Two of them are over 18, one's still in high school. So loving that, loving being a dad. That's really kind of my why and a lot of what I do there. In terms of business, H21, so I got into stormwater back 20 years ago, and I was inshoring, was recruited by a company, and kind of really never looked back. I didn't know it was an industry. I didn't know about regulation. There was a lot of things I didn't know. So one decision, good decision for me, and kind of really changed the trajectory of my career. Spent 10 years with a company called Contact Engineered Solutions, learned a ton. They were a major engineered product solutions provider. After 10 years of that, I took an expansion role and I went to Oldcastle Infrastructure, and I was hired on to manage their Western region for their stormwater division, which I did for basically 6 years. And then one of my last roles before going on my own, I was vice president of sales for the pressure pipe division for Thompson Pipe Group, running an organization that we had over a $200 million P&L. I'll just say that. Probably had 50 people in my reporting structure and had everything that was demand generation fell under my group for that division. And really just found myself gone all the time. My office was in Texas. I live here in San Diego, native, been here my entire life. I had national responsibility and I was gone all the time. And I really just it was weighing on the family, it was weighing on me, and I made a decision that something had to change. So back in 2024, beginning of the year, I really started thinking heavily about quitting my corporate job and doing something different, which I've never quit a job without having something lined up before. And I really just felt like I was being led to walk out. And I remember walking out of my office in Texas, getting ready to fly home one evening, and I kept hearing this over and over: "Have you had enough yet? Have you had enough yet?" And it was particularly that day was rough. Walked out, I heard the "Have you had enough yet?" And I audibly I said, "Yes, I've had enough." And I felt like a ton of bricks fell off my chest. So went home, talked to my wife, talked to my boys, said, "What do you think about me quitting my corporate job and doing something different?" And without hesitation, they all said, "Yes, yes, yes." And that's really kind of what led me on my journey to start my own corporation doing consulting with what I knew. Wasn't wasn't something that was like clear cut and dry. Hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to run right into it. But I had a lot of friends in the industry and started talking about some of my ideas. And people said, "Hey, we'd be willing to pay somebody like you with your time in industry and expertise as a consultant to work for us in promotion of our stormwater products, because it's somewhat of a specialized niche industry." And that's really kind of the catalyst that got me going. I went down, started an S corporation, met with Kevin Miller, talked to him before I did a lot of this, met with a lot of people that I respect and trust in the industry. And so that's what I did. And what I do right now is I consult with different companies that have manufactured or engineered products, and I connect them with stakeholders. It could be design engineers. I do a lot of work with civil engineers and helping them to design these systems. I work with municipalities, but my target clients are typically manufacturers that have a product that are looking to get into a market space. And because of the technical nature, and I say technical, it's not really technical, but it's not something that a typical salesman just goes and knocks on the door and says, hey, buy our products. You've got to sell somebody on a solution. It's got to be right for their project. They will then design that or specify that into their plans. So you sell it once, and then it's got to go out to bid. So it's got to be sold again. A lot of times I'm not on that side of it. I work with the first sell, the specification, and making sure that it's right, and then we go from there. But I kind of consider myself a hired gun at this point.
Yeah, no, that's a great breakdown. That's really cool to hear the experience and the why and just the journey that led you to start your own company. So exciting, so cool.
Yeah.
And so with your experience and just starting H21 Enterprise, what do you enjoy most about your business?
That's a really good question, Chris. I enjoy the people that I work with. I enjoy having the ability to change, but you know, courses, one of the things I really enjoy the most is I get to pick and choose who I work with. I've worked for great companies and I've worked for companies that weren't so great. And because, ultimately I work for myself, but the reality of it is you're always working for somebody. You have a client. Being able to choose the clients that I work with and represent is a complete game changer because if somebody doesn't fit into, say, my values or the model of a company that I would want to represent, I don't represent them. Whereas when you're working with corporate, you have to talk about that company, those products. And it also allows me to offer people better consulting, better advice, better solutions because I'm not beholden to only offering a certain line. I can talk intelligently about many different manufacturers, many different ways of doing things through my experience. And, that's one of the good things about having a few Christmases under your belt is as you get older, you actually gain some experience and you have something of value to offer your clients.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense, and that is hugely valuable. That is great. What when you lead your clients and consult with them, what is the most important principle that guides your approach?
For me, it's really giving them something that makes sense for them and their clients. For example, if you're a civil engineer and you're doing design work for an owner, they're paying you to give them a design and to be as cost effective as possible, but give them something that is going to meet their needs and long-term goals. So for me, I like to educate them because one technology may be better than another for certain things, but it may not meet that client's needs for the long term goal. So, really educating engineers in how to have conversations with their clients because they rely on repeat business. I rely on repeat business. And I'll give you an example. If you've got a developer and they're developing a property, and they have to manage stormwater and they've got to store, let's say, I don't know, 50,000 cubic feet of storage, right? And they're either infiltrating or whatever they're doing with that water. There's many different ways that they can store that water underground. Some are more expensive than others. Some are less expensive. But really understanding, is that client going to sell that property? Or are they going to keep the property? Are they going to be on the hook for maintenance or are they not? And those are some very important things to understand because if I can give my clients solutions and educate them so that they can educate their owners, then the owner makes the decision on what's best for them and meets their needs in the future. And so it's really consulting in a way to where I'm not trying to push a specific product. And if I don't have the right solution, I'm going to tell you I don't have it, but this is something you should look for because it's going to meet your needs and your clients' needs. So really being able to steer them in the right direction without pressuring them to do something that doesn't meet the needs of their needs or the project needs. Because at the end of the day, I want it to be a a success, the project. I want the engineer designing it wants to be a success, and the owner of that project wants it to be a success. So that's my goal.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense, and having that approach is so valuable to the clients, and so that's really cool.
Yep.
I wanted to talk about trends within the industry. Are you seeing any big changes in the stormwater infrastructure industry right now?
Yeah, I am, and it's interesting. Like I said, 20 years ago, I had no idea what stormwater, other than stormwater runoff from rain events. I had no idea that it was an industry and that it was regulated and all of those things. So it's constantly changing. But what I'll say is the requirements for treatment, for storage, and I don't really want to get into the details of that, the technical, for our audience sake, but they're continually changing. But I can say that units have been going in for treating, for storing, for infiltrating for 20, 30 years. And what the trends are going to now is sustainability and maintainability. So designing systems that are safe to enter. Most of these systems are confined spaces and that have accommodations for either navigating them internally safely and being able to maintain them safely as well. So designing, and I'll give you an example. Some of the structures that we're designing for the parks projects, we do a lot of work in Los Angeles. Uh, Imagine a precast concrete structure 14 feet tall with a footprint the size of a Costco building underground. So we do modular systems, and these systems are massive, and they're diverting flow. These systems are filling up. Sometimes they could be like 20 acre feet of water. So imagine an acre 20 feet tall. So it's a good amount of water within them, or more. And the agencies are now more than ever paying attention because a lot of times they're on the hook for maintaining the systems, for inspecting those systems, and nobody wants to crawl down a 30-inch manhole 25 feet because finished grade above that 14-foot might be another 10, 11 feet on a ladder with a harness, and it takes about 15 minutes per person to get them down. So what we're seeing is the agencies want better access. One of my clients, they designed with stairway access to get down inside. So you pop a hatch and you can actually walk down this into the system. They design these systems so that you can put EV equipment down inside and push sediment so that it can be cleaned out because you're capturing a lot of sediment in the systems.
Mm.
And if you're infiltrating that silt and fine sediment, once that gets into your infiltration rock and bed, it can cause the system to stop performing. So we design systems that you can maintain your areas where you're infiltrating so that it's performing its drawdown times, it's infiltrating at the rate it was designed for the life cycle of the system itself. So those three things are huge now: is maintainability and sustainable systems that are going to keep performing the duration of their design life and being able to access them.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And it is interesting how much goes into it. Like you said, I didn't know much before our conversation of starting and looking into this, just prepping for the interview, and it's really cool just to see how deep and complex it really gets. Are you seeing any specific new tools or strategies, even to like your business approach, that is maybe with like automations or within the industry that are helping you with your strategies to reaching these clients?
Yeah, it's interesting times we're in. The more you can help a client to actually visualize or understand what the end product, if you will, or what the goal is going to look like operationally, what that's going to look like, and what they can expect and anticipate, I think the better off you are. So we do a lot of design iterations, and I work with multiple clients, and that's something that most companies do, is providing with layout designs, specification, calculations, infiltration, and all of that. But I think really just being able to paint a clear picture of what they can expect, and also being there to support the project for the life cycle. You're supporting it in concept, you're supporting it in design, you're supporting it in construction. Now we're supporting the owner long after that,
Mm.
whether it's through inspection, O&M, making sure that their paperwork is clean with the agency that they're going into. But being able to kind of take something that, and I say complex, it's not, but for the average person, the regulation and all of these things, their eyes just roll back in their head. They hand it to you, they said, make this go away. And it's like, absolutely. And then they thank you for it at the end of the day. So being able to really, I think, take the burden off of the designers, take the burden off the owners, and just let them know. And whether that's through drawings, details, tools, or just being present, or having relationships with agencies, and just being able to really kind of help smooth that process along, I think is huge.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Being there for every part of the solution, it totally makes sense. I wanted to talk a little bit about the current state of, and so I wanted to know what is currently working really well for you within your business right now.
I, there's a couple things that are working, and one, it really helps to target and work with good clients because they make my job easy. So that's really well. When I work with a good company, it makes me look better because I have better things to offer. So that's going well. But my company individually, I think what's really working well, and it's been trial and error. Sometimes I look back at some of the proposals I've written, and I'm thankful that I didn't get that job, because I probably would have lost money on it.
Hmm.
What's going well are the clients that really understand the value of, like for one, for example, I do full blown representation for them, and their backlog is in, um, it's, I don't like saying numbers on TV, but let's just say it's multiples of tens in the millions of dollars. And, that's over the course of, a period of time. And they are very much vested in that. I'm very much vested in that. So working with a company like that, and that has a good reputation, and then maintaining that reputation with the engineers, is really good. For me and my company, I think that making sure that I'm working with companies and being very clear on expectation and what they can expect, I think that's going well. And then building relationships within the industry, really finding those niche needs and reaching out to those companies, and having conversations. But what I think was a challenge for me in the beginning, and putting it out there, is I went right into it. I had a couple clients immediately out the gate, and it was like things were going very well. I was like, man, this was the best decision I made. Um, and then I had a major client that I lost, and it wasn't due to anything I did. It was just, business structures, change, reorganizational measures that took place within. And then I went from doing great to, yeah, I'm actually just doing okay. And I was putting out a lot of proposals, and I was just like, man, I'm not getting the work. And I started kind of questioning, am I doing things right? Did I hear right? Should I be doing this? And I really felt like I was being led to put together a different tier option. Like, rather than me kind of guessing what my clients need, put together a couple different options. So I started putting together a 3-tier option with different price points, different levels of, this is what we're going to be doing. Like, for example, I do a lot of engineering presentations with engineering firms. So I have influence. I'm speaking for 1 hour in front of, 3 to could be 50 people, and I've got their attention. Well, there's a lot of companies that want the attention of those engineers, and they really don't want to pay somebody, you know, big money to be a full representative of them, but they'd like to be mentioned in that presentation. So it's almost like I have a little bit of influence. I can talk a little bit about that company for, 5 minutes, and they're willing to pay for that, but they're not going to pay me what somebody would pay me if I was a full blown manufacturer's representative for their organization as well.
Mm.
So I felt like that was what I was being led to do, was change my pricing structure and give them options. And so that's something that I really feel like has gone well. And since that point in time, I've seen a lot more activity and my client base has picked up significantly. And it allows me the freedom to do more of what I like to do. And I'm not, constantly bogged down because I give them a certain amount of hours with that time frame as well. And I've got multiple clients rather than one or two. In the very beginning, when I lost that major client, that was a major ding for me from a business standpoint and financially. So it allows me to work with more people. So if a client changes or comes or goes, it doesn't impact my business to the degree as it would when I lost that big client. So I have a middle grade, which is a little bit more. I offer more services in that, and then I'll offer full representation. So if there's a company that is, and this is where it really works great, is you have a good company, maybe they're outside of a certain geography, and I have a lot of influence in, let's say, Southern California or the Southwest region. They're willing to pay somebody to be a representative of their company in that area to kind of get them on the map. So they would pay more money, and I would actually act as an agent of that organization on behalf of them to give them a presence, and so they get to work off of my reputation, off of my influence, and I help them build their company as I come into that.
Yeah, that's really cool. And that's really interesting to see how you were able to adapt to that challenge and overcome it by
Yeah.
allowing those different levels of the different tiers of service. And so that's really cool. I wanted to quickly mention, there is every business faces challenges in one way or another, and you had mentioned that past challenge, which is cool to see how you overcame that with just another option, another solution. But I wanted to know, are there any current challenges that you're facing right now? Any, bottlenecks or time sinks, or something? And what is your strategy to overcome that?
Oh, great question. Yes, it's. I often use the term, and it's maybe cliche, but I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. And I think what I've realized in what I'm doing is I'm the product. I only have so many hours in a day, and I need to scale up my business. And so for me, do I continue with consulting? Do I look to build out something bigger, doing more inspection and O&M? Uh, so the things that I'm looking at is, how do I grow my business? I like the aspect of, I really enjoy going out. It's weird. I enjoy public speaking. I enjoy getting in front of these engineering firms. It's always come easy to me. I'm not bad at it. So that part's fun. I don't want to give that up, but I also need to be able to scale and increase revenue. And I want to do something to where I can bring in my sons if they want to work with me. And they've voiced some interest in that, which they never did in the past. So I'm looking at, do I buy a small company? So I've got some numbers. I've been talking to people that have bought companies to kind of expand that. I'm looking at hydrojetting. I'm looking at different things kind of in the water related industry. Do I start doing inspections? And I'm not really, the maintenance side of it I could do with that as well, but inspections, doing paperwork, O&M, because everybody has to have, submit their paperwork, do their inspections and all of that. I've done that in the past. So do I do that? Do I buy a little yogurt shop? I mean, so these are all things that I'm talking about, praying about, and really just kind of looking at, how do I grow and expand that and build something that's bigger than just me, because I'm the employee of my company. And there's some things with fear, you want to overcome with that. And now I'm going to have to, change the way I'm doing my corporate payroll. There's other things that come into play once you start bringing people in. Your risk, it goes up significantly. So all of these things. So those are all things that I'm looking at right now. My motto has always been to have a very low overhead business, and um, something that you can kind of run and have other people do a lot of things. So I'm looking at other ways that I can potentially subcontract out some of this work as well. And so there's a lot of different things I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And that leads into what I was gonna ask is like where are you going, right?
Yeah.
What's the where within the next 6 months to a year, and it sounds like you answered that through the challenge that you're facing too, which is actually super
Yeah.
cool. And so, I wanted to know, when you think about scaling in that way, would you define that growth? I know you mentioned you're still kind of exactly figuring out where to tackle, but how would you best define that growth?
Um, I, for me, I believe it's having something that is able to run absent my involvement. That's really how I kind of define the growth that I'm looking for, meaning it doesn't require me to actually be doing everything to keep everything afloat. So for me, that growth would be building systems, getting accounts set up, and having somebody else that can answer the phone, that can do a lot of the busy work, the client work, somebody that I can teach, somebody that if we're doing a service that they can go out do those service calls. So I can spend more time focused on building the business and doing the things that only I can do. And the stormwater, 20 years of experience in that, it just I've hired a lot of people, and it you just have to be in it. I mean, it's really hard to hire somebody and teach them what I know within a short period of time. So I'd like to be able to do the things that only I can do, and then pay people to do the other things that, maybe bog me down a little bit. Like my accounting, I've got a part-time bookkeeper, and she's great. And I'm so thankful for that, because that's what she loves to do. And we have systems set up, so everything is, by the book, and it works well. I'd like to be able to scale something similar to that into my business as well, so that it's actually running. And if I have a sick day, which, when you run your business, you don't really get a sick day, the business doesn't fall apart.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And that's cool to see, just like the potential and where you're heading and what's gonna come out of it. I'm excited to
Yeah.
see. Um, when you think of sales within your company, what's the biggest like sales or even capacity related challenge that you believe must be solved before you can really get to that level of success?
Uh, for me, I think that's a good question, and I've thought about it a bit. And I don't know that it's a sales thing. I think it's really just a lot of it's here. Getting, I have a tendency to overthink things and talk myself out of it, or I can think, I can look and I can see everything that could go wrong, but I can also see everything that can go right. And for that, I think it's just overcoming, for me, the fear of stepping out again. Starting the business was stepping out, walking away from corporate was stepping out, but stepping out and deciding, okay, this is what we're going to do, and this is the path we're going to go on. And what does that look like? And just starting to work towards that, and not really paying attention to the other things that, the other things that you're hearing in your head, that this could happen. What if this, what if you lose your house? What if all of these things that are, big big drivers for us. So I think for me, it's really just surrounding myself with like-minded professionals. And the more that I surround myself with people that have gone through that have done that and have those conversations, I think it helps me to get over my own fears in doing that. So I think it's, you know, my own head is the biggest obstacle I've got to get through. And then it's really just specializing, finding that direction, whether, like I'd mentioned, I've been looking a lot into the hydrojetting. It seems like a very easy, low cost to get into system. So do I buy a company or do I just start buying equipment and going out and hit the streets selling? So really for that is getting over the hurdle in my mind and then determining what I do and just specializing and going for it, because there's opportunity everywhere and you can get spread thin doing a lot of things that take a lot of time, don't really demand or generate a lot of revenue, and you end up exhausted at the end. So it's really focusing and just executing.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Focusing on those tasks that really move the needle and get you
Yep.
the results that really just keep the business running and get you to the place that you want to be. That totally makes sense. That's cool.
Yeah.
So I've really appreciated the conversation we've had today. I think the insights you shared are valuable. I think our listeners will appreciate. Before we go, could you share with our listeners where they can find more out about H21 Enterprise and where they can learn about your services?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't have a website built yet. I should, but if you go to my LinkedIn page, you can just look up Shelby Hull. Or H21 Enterprises. I do have an H21 page. I do have my LinkedIn page. You can message me there. I respond relatively quick, but take a look at it. If you have questions, reach out. I'd love to have a conversation. More and more people are dealing with stormwater issues, especially if they own properties or businesses. So love to have conversations about that. And if you're just somebody looking to connect and, iron sharpen a little bit of iron, I'd love to have a conversation with you. So LinkedIn's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Well, thank you. To close, I'd like to ask you one last question. Since this is the Business Leaders Legacy podcast, and
Yep.
you being a business leader, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
I did not come from a great, I didn't have a great background. And I think for me, my legacy is having a healthy family, number one. And for and a lot of the things that I've done in my life is really my my sons. I have three sons, and them seeing that all things are possible. They know. Your kids know you at your best and at your worst. So my legacy, more than even from a financial standpoint or anything like that, is just these young men, as they're growing into young men, that they become productive members of society, that they have that they walk in their faith, that they walk in integrity, and that they see that they can accomplish anything they want, as long as they work hard and put their mind to it. And I think that as I'm learning to getting out of corporate, stepping out in faith, and really trusting God to provide for you, and them seeing me do that and having conversations with them through that, that's really the legacy I want to leave, is for them to see and for them to duplicate, have healthy families, raise healthy kids. And just, I really believe that that's how we truly change things, is one family at a time. So they're my legacy.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is very honorable. Something I look up to and something I want to do also.
Yeah.
So that's really cool to hear. Again, thank you, Shelby. I really appreciate all the insight you gave, and sharing your story and being open. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Um, to all of our listeners out there, again, this is the Business Leaders Legacy podcast. If you enjoyed our conversation, please subscribe, and we will see you next time. Thank you.